In this video, I'll aim to answer 4 separate but very much connected questions. 1. What is a Nen beast? 2. Are Nen beasts exclusively conjured, or can they be emitted as well? 3. If both of these categories can create Nen beasts, what would be the difference between them? And 4. Could this difference explain why Castro, an enhancer, chose to conjure instead of emit a double of himself? Let's get into it. So, first and foremost, what is a Nen beast? From what little we've been explicitly told, the vague category of Nen beast seems to be applicable to an incredibly diverse range of abilities, with any manipulated Nen construct with a degree of sentience falling under its definitional purview. Anything from Shakomono's black children, Greynu's flutters, Ebengain's toe-sucking sleep paralysis demon, Knuckles' equivalent of
Listen!
and Heinrich's gold experience, to every guardian spirit beast we've seen would fall under this broad classification. As you can see, the only 2 consistent criteria that can be identified are that 1. A Nen beast must be a manipulated Nen construct, and 2. Through manipulation, it must be imbued with the capacity to exhibit a minimal degree of sentience, such as being able to perceive, identify, and target humans in their vicinity, which was the case with Shakomono's rather unimpressive children. Speaking of Shakomono's child soldiers, we can use him and them as a springboard for answering the second query. Are Nen beasts exclusively conjured, or can they be emitted as well? See, I've always used Razor's devils and Greynu's sages as the prototypical examples of emitted Nen beasts, since there are very good reasons to view them as such. First, both Razor and Greynu are emitters, with Conjuration as their opposite category, making conjured Nen constructs a less than optimal choice for them, to say the least. 2. Emitters already excel at separating and maintaining aura and its effects away from their bodies, which is one of the key reasons why conjurers opt for creating Nen beasts in the first place, to serve as long-range facilitators of their abilities, e.g. Knuckles Hakuware, Flutter's Dragonflies, Moose's Little Eye, Kurapika's Stealth Dolphin, and so on. In this way, while they do not bypass the need for emission, their opposite category, they can significantly diminish its limitations and Nen memory toll. Third, creating emitted Nen beasts is something that's entirely mechanically possible. In order to do so, an emitter would need to separate and maintain a clump of aura, which as emitters they excel at, use basic transmutation to shape their now emitted aura, which is a level 1 transmutation-based mechanic, and finally, relatively basic manipulation would enable movement and imbue a degree of sentience to the construct now properly classifiable as a Nen beast. Hell, emitting Nen beasts is, in my opinion, simpler and requires less effort than conjuring them does. But more on that in a bit. The fourth and final reason will make more sense when I talk about the potential differences between conjured and emitted Nen beasts. Suffice it to say for now that none of the emitted Nen beasts I've mentioned exhibit complex extra-categorical properties. Now, while I do think all of these reasons are enough on their own to make a case for the possibility and viability of emitted Nen beasts, I can go a step further by offering 2 explicit cases where Nen beasts are definitely not conjured, but instead primarily emission-based. Shakomono's aforementioned black children, along with Moral's smoke soldiers. Shakomono's soldiers are nothing more than person-shaped balloons filled with aura that are then manipulated. While super simple, they nonetheless just barely fulfill the 2 aforementioned requirements of being manipulated Nen constructs with at least a minimal degree of sentience. On the other hand, in order to create his smoke soldiers, Moral emits an aura core, imbues it with preset commands, and then shapes the smoke around it to take on a humanoid form. The smoke itself, in this case, may be real, transmuted, or conjured, but let's not get into a lengthy discussion on that now. Whatever the case may be, the emitted aura core imbued with the preset commands is what allows the smoke soldiers to maintain their form and functionality while far away from Moral. All in all, in my humble opinion, I do believe that this is all sufficient evidence for us to delineate between conjured and emitted Nen beasts. With that established, let's move on to the third question. What, if any, are the differences between the 2? Well, let's start with the superficial ones first. First, while emitted Nen beasts would not be visible to non-Nen users, conjured ones would. Second, as discussed in the now demonetized Hatsu levels ranked Conjuration video, I view Conjuration as having the highest skill floor out of the 5 regular categories, meaning that I view emitting Nen beasts as easier and less demanding than conjuring them, as implied earlier. Bear in mind that emission must be used to maintain the functionality of conjured constructs not being worn or carried by the user, but for more info on that, feel free to check out the aforementioned video. Third, we have precedents for emitted Nen being able to be reabsorbed by the user, while no such precedent exists for conjured objects. This makes sense, since emitted Nen beasts are just pure aura given solidity and shape via transmutation, while conjured constructs are materialized via Nen, which is mostly used up in the process. They are still aura constructs, mind you, since they can be dispelled by their users, and because in can be applied to them to make them nearly imperceptible, as strange as that is. Nonetheless, conjured constructs and entities are just fundamentally more real, more physical, hence why they can be seen by regular people. And fourth, you'll also notice how emission-based Nen beasts seem to be more quantity-oriented, while conjuration-based ones seem to be more quality-oriented. Moral, Razor, and Shakomono can all create and control a large number of Nen beasts, and even Goreinu creates 2, while in the vast majority of cases, with Flutter being the only exception I could think of, conjurers opt for creating a single beast. Why is that? Well, to explain that, let's now get to the functional differences between these 2 Nen beast types. As I once again discussed in the Conjuration video, Conjuration's most prolific function seems to be the facilitation of Nen mechanics and abilities, while not inherently, nonetheless most commonly, inherent to other categories. In its role as a facilitator, Conjuration in a way acts as discount specialization, allowing conjurers to often opt for multi-categorically complex abilities, such as Genthu's Countdown, Knuckles' Hakoware, Kite's Crazy Slots, and so on. Conjuration excels at ability and mechanic facilitation to such an extent that even a non-conjurer incredibly versed in Nen, such as Bisky, sees it as optimal to have a conjured Nen beast be the facilitator of her transmutation, enhancement, and manipulation-based ability. Yeah, Bisky's insane. On the other hand, emission-based Nen beasts haven't been shown as facilitators of any particularly mechanically complex abilities that are not emission-based. Shakomono's black children are just glorified balloon animals and don't have supernatural properties of any kind. Goreinu sages can swap places with either Goreinu himself or another person, which is an advanced emission-based mechanic I've termed total transpositioning. Razor's devils are able to fuse, but that primarily stems from their nature as pure aura constructs. They're malleable to a degree most conjured constructs are not, and the only thing their fusion accomplishes is to make them bigger and more powerful due to the greater amount of aura now comprising a single construct. This ability relies on the simplest transmutation-based mechanic, namely aura shaping, which as a mechanic is already fundamental to the creation of emitted Nen beasts. Moral smoke soldiers are a bit weird, since what emission does here is create cores of aura which are then imbued with preset manipulation-based commands. The smoke is then shaped around the core, allowing the now Nen soldiers to act independently while far away from Moral. Apart from putting to shame Shakomono's child soldiers in terms of both quality and quantity, owing to the massive difference in aura output and skill between these two, they nonetheless do not showcase any supernatural properties. As such, because of the fact that emitted Nen beasts rarely serve as facilitators of complex abilities, especially those inherent to other categories, as well as the fact that the skill floor for creating emission-based beasts is significantly lower than for conjuration-based ones, makes spamming them and focusing on quantity over quality a far better option than it would be for conjurers in the vast majority of cases. While it may be clear to some of you at this point, let's now quickly go over why Castro couldn't emit but needed to conjure his double. First, I need to mention that I do not see doubles or doppelgangers as anything other than Nen beasts that simply look like the user. As in my eyes, they'd be just a subset of Nen beast-based abilities, and not their own thing. With that said, there are 2 fundamental reasons why Castro's double needed to be conjured. The first is the aforementioned capacity for conjured entities to facilitate the abilities of other categories, and Castro's goal was to create what he termed the true Tiger Bite Fist. Tiger Bite Fist is a simple enhancement-based ability that greatly empowers Castro's technique, which mimics the jaws of a tiger. Even though his affinity for emission is superior to his affinity for conjuration, it's unrealistic to think that with a 60% affinity for manipulation, Castro would have been able to control 2, let alone 3 or more, of his doppelgangers at once. In order to make the true Tiger Bite Fist a reality, he needed his clone to be able to move as quickly as he did and maneuver and attack with the same level of speed, dexterity, and power, all the while utilizing his enhancement-based Hatsu. As such, since his goal barred him from going for quantity, he opted for quality, and consequently opted for conjuring a single double. The second reason is that I just don't think it would have been mechanically possible. See, while they may not excel at it as much as conjuration-based ones would, it's reasonable to assume that emission-based Nen beasts could facilitate certain relatively simple abilities inherent to other categories. However, the enhancement-based Tiger Bite Fist simply may not be one of them. Actually, most enhancement-based abilities like Uvu's Big Bang Impact or Gon's Rock probably couldn't work with an emitted construct. I say this because it's very questionable whether pure aura can be enhanced. Enhancement has been shown is capable of empowering one's physical traits, such as with Uvo's fist, an object's physical trait, such as with Nobunaga's sword, a specific awareness, such as with Dogman's sense of smell. It's even been implied it's capable of enhancing one's mental capabilities, such as with Komugi's mastery of Gungi. But it's questionable whether or not it can actually enhance aura directly. Yes, certain support-type enhancers, for example, can enhance the rate of growth or development in living beings, which can quicken their progress in learning Nen, such as Bill's Erigeron. Another example would be Shalnark's autopilot mode, which offers him a manipulation facilitated but enhancement based or a boost for a limited time. But what's being stimulated or empowered in these cases is still a person's capacity for something. In the first case, it's a person's capacity to learn and improve in Nen, while in the second, it's their maximum Nen output. What is being pushed beyond their normal limits are the people producing the aura, not the aura itself. Enhancing aura with aura also intuitively feels off to me, but maybe I'm alone in that one. Nonetheless, we currently do not have any precedent that pure aura, which emitted Nen beasts essentially are, can be enhanced. But even if it could, the true Tiger Bite Fist, as Castro had imagined it, still wouldn't have worked. Simply put, it wouldn't be the same Hatsu at that point. The Tiger Bite Fist enhances Castro's physical hands, and therefore couldn't be applied to a double entirely made up of Nen, as what would be enhanced there would be pure aura that just so happens to be in the shape of hands, which is fundamentally not the same thing. Castro would need to develop, while a similar, nonetheless different Hatsu, to then apply to the emitted double, which at that point really wouldn't be worth the effort and Nen memory. No matter how you slice it, creating a conjured Nen beast was the only way to make Castro's vision a reality. But, as the old adage goes, just because you could definitely don't mean you should. And that's that. I swear, I keep covering more and more obscure topics. What's next? The Great Zeppelin Conspiracy? By the way, if Castro's fighting style had him utilizing and enhancing a weapon, like a sword, instead of his hands, it may have been possible for his double to be emitted, as long as the sword it was holding was either real or conjured. It would have probably ruined the whole flowing cloak surprise attack shtick, but it's not like that amounted to much anyway. With that said, first and foremost, I'd like to thank Kamaswami, Tom Gnome, Nassan, Loki, and Augustin for going the extra mile in supporting the channel. Considering how my thus far longest scripted video was demonetized, the support genuinely does go a long way. As a quick update on that, the dispute did not go in my favor. The video has been permanently blocked, and I'd rather not dispute it or else risk a copyright strike. So I'll just upload it again with some added editing. The channel analytics will take a blow, but what can you do? I'll see what happens to this one, but since I know a bunch of you do like to have video as visuals to match my blabbering, I'll try my best to keep that going. As always, thank you very much for watching, your feedback is always appreciated, subscribe if you'd like more content like this, and I'll see you in the next one.